This was reviewed on PC.
I gotta start off by saying that the new Rainbow Studios has come a long way since their first two releases starting in 2014. Seriously, Rainbow has grown a lot as developers. Honestly, Supercross is the first game I've ever taken my time to drive back to GameStop to return because it was so bad. And I feel the same way about Supercross Encore. The physics were clunky, the turning was awkward, the track design was horrible, and the in-air physics and whipping was just not satisfying at all. On top of a ridiculous clutch boost and preload that were so over the top, it made MX The Force a more immersive motocross game than this. MX vs ATV All Out has improved on everything, every single aspect. Well, except for sound, but that's not a big deal. Supercross Encore wasn't bad because it was unrealistic. It was bad because it just wasn't fun. The series is called MX vs ATV. It's not supposed to be realistic. It's meant just to be arcadey fun for a huge audience that's looking for an off-roading game. That's why this is the only motocross game where you find huge channels filming their screen for reviews or saying shit like,
sound-wise, it's okay, honestly. The bikes sound good.
And I don't blame them. That's who these studios have to appeal to in order to pull in big sales numbers. If you just make a super difficult, realistic game like MX Simulator, it's sold maybe 30 or 40,000 copies in 10 years, while a series like this that appeals to more people has sold millions of copies. I just wanted to get that out of the way because I think the most common complaint with these huge arcade motocross games is that they're not realistic enough, and that's why they're not fun, when really, it's just because they're not fun. Unleashed, Untamed, Reflex, MXGP3, Supercross the game are all really fun games that are unrealistic. Yeah, I prefer the much more difficult simulator with a bunch of depth and a huge skill gap, but I can definitely still have plenty of fun with the arcade games and can tell the good from the bad. What I'm getting at is that a good motocross game doesn't necessarily have to be realistic. And being probably the most common complaint out there, I think a lot of people forget that this game is called MX vs ATV. It's a game that's always been about turning your brain off and goofing around with your buddies, not shifting into gear at the perfect split second and having the physics directly aligned with the equation of pi or whatever the fuck. And they're forced to make unrealistic arcade games because that's the only thing that will sell to the masses, and they'll definitely never make enough money to keep a studio running. And I think they've done a pretty good job so far, besides Supercross Encore. So how does MX vs ATV All Out really stack up? I've gotta say, I've never seen the community so split on a motocross game before. Some people despise it and say they returned it within 1 hour of playing. Some people are praising it as their favorite in the series. Where does it really stack up though?
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for.
Honestly, it's somewhere in between. It's alright. You already know what this game is all about. All Rainbow could talk about pre-release was #FreeTheWhip, and god damn it, did they do a great job, because the whips in this game are so much fun to throw. You can throw some mad schmeezers, boys! Seriously, the highlight of this game is just going into Freeride with your buddies, scouting out lines, and throwing mad fatties all day long. I have to know who at Rainbow Studios thought of the Oppo whip mechanic, because it's the greatest idea that's been added to this series since the dual reflex sticks. Instead of pushing both sticks in one direction to throw a standard whip, you push them apart and you'll throw like an Axel Hodges Oppo instead. It's really rewarding once you get them down right and super fun to just mess around with. All three Freeride locations are designed very well. It's hard to say whether or not throwing whips in Freeride or racing the Supercross tracks is my favorite part of the game, but they're definitely both the game's greatest strengths. Regarding the Freeride, I do wish they had some crazier, more video game type jumps, you know? Make the most out of this being an MX vs ATV game where you can do whatever you want, and have crazy, unrealistic jumps over like that yacht over there. Or maybe have a huge takeoff and the landing is one of these solar panels or something. Maybe even like a Ronnie Renner high jump up into this tower and then a jump down. I just thought they could have gone a little crazier with some of the Freeride jumps, but that's okay, I still really enjoy them. Rainbow also struck just about the right balance for their clutch boost mechanic and preload. I never thought I'd be saying this after trashing on Supercross Encore, but I kinda like the clutch boost. It's not too dramatic now to where you just jump to 70 miles an hour instantly, and you can't just spam it throughout rhythm sections anymore. You kinda have to wait a moment before you can use it again. It's enough to help out when you goof up in a rhythm section, give you a little kickstart so you're not rolling everything super slow. I think this arcadey clutch boost and preload feature could really only work in a game that doesn't take itself too seriously like this, in a franchise that knows it's not a serious racing game. This mechanic would be really stupid in a game like Monster Energy Supercross or especially MX Simulator, but I think it honestly fits in well with this game. Alright. Whoever designed the Supercross tracks deserves a raise, because he made them beginner friendly enough but managed to sneak some big lines in there for the fast guys. The steep berms on the Supercross tracks also complement the game's turning physics quite well. This game's weak point is definitely the on-ground physics, which means turning on flat corners is especially boring, so these berms really help the game out. Really nothing but great things to say about the Supercross tracks layouts, but when it comes to the environment, they're all pretty bland. 23 hours in and I still don't recognize which Supercross is which from the menu. They all look the same. I get it. All Supercross tracks look pretty much alike in real life, but in past MX vs ATV titles, they've really been able to make each track really unique from one another. If you saw a picture of a track, then you knew exactly what track it was. Now they all just look the same. The bland environments are really the only complaint I have about the Supercross tracks though. They still have a great overall design. Now aside from Supercross, the Nationals suck ass. Not only are these environments bland and generic, but the tracks are so boring. It's like they're all the same track, there's just no character to any of them, except for Shadow Valley. It actually kind of has some fun sections, and Amber Ridge is a close second, but other than those two, all the Nationals are garbage. They're like 50 feet wide with a bunch of nearly flat corners, which I told you were extremely boring in this game earlier, and very few exciting jumps or challenging sections to figure out. If I'm trying to be nice, I'm gonna assume that they made the national tracks for the beginner riders, and assume that nobody with a relatively average skill level would want to ride any national tracks. They're just so easy and boring. Seriously, it was such a pain to get through the series on all the national tracks. Most of the time you could run a fast lap on lap 1 because they were so easy. These generic boring tracks really bug me in a game like this because, once again, it's MX vs ATV. They should have these crazy, unrealistic, fantasy, wild tracks that are very memorable in crazy locations that you would never ride in real life. If you're gonna go the arcade route to appeal to the masses, then at least take the arcade route to the full extent. They have the benefit of not needing realistic environments or tracks because that's what this series has been from the start. I still can remember track layouts from MX vs ATV games that came out 10 years ago better than these tracks that I've been playing recently because they're just so much better. Take Clearwater from Untamed as an example. That's probably one of my favorite tracks that's ever been in the franchise, and definitely a track that you would never see in real life. There's just a bunch of fat booters and vertical berms that you can rail wide open. But in All Out, all you have is practically flat corners, long straightaways, and copy and pasted jumps from track to track. These are no doubt the worst outdoor nationals built in any MX vs ATV game. But you know what? That's alright, because at least I have my Supercross and Freeride. That's plenty enough for me. I can have plenty of fun with that. And especially throwing down some mad schmeezers, boys. Woohoo! What? No. No. Oh no. You fucked up, Rainbow. You fucked it up. This game crashes more than Joey Savacci holding the red plate. And if it doesn't crash, then you're gonna lag out of matches. This doesn't happen in single player. If you just play this game alone, then you'll be fine. But the multiplayer, which I think is the strongest part of the game, is pretty broken. I'm not just exaggerating for the sake of this video. You really can only play maybe half of the games you enter on multiplayer. One of the times I was streaming this game, it crashed 3 times in the first 15 minutes. Game crashed.
Oh my.
Game crashed. Oh my god.
Savella gang.
It crashed again. 3 times in 15 minutes.
I literally can't play the game. Rainbow has dropped 3 patches with a 4th on the way, and I'm not joking. My friends and I are convinced that the game is even worse than it was on day 1. The patches have done virtually nothing. I really think Rainbow doesn't know how to fix this game right now. Honestly, I've been waiting for them to patch the game before any sort of review. But then they go and drop this shit on us. Alright, cool. There's more patches on the way. They're focused on fixing the performance of the game before adding more content. That's totally fair. Okay, guess it's time to release the DLC before fixing the game. That's cool. Never mind not being able to play multiplayer. At least I can ride a Kawasaki. Shout out to the Fatal Error DLC. Oh no, but that's not enough. Some dude is being a dickhead on Twitter, but does raise very reasonable concern about the frame rate. I think we can all agree that there really shouldn't be performance issues like a poor frame rate in a big release like this. So, yeah, fuck you, Zach. You shouldn't have been so slow, man, because if you're fast, it magically fixes all of the performance issues, like the frame rate, countless crashes, garbage netcode, and multiplayer bugs, you big idiot. Oh, man, our bad, Zach, our bad, man. Someone with an actual following and a voice in the community called us out, so now we'll respond politely. Because if you don't have a lot of followers and influence, then fuck your opinion, right? It's okay, the developers are working 14-hour days to get all the DLC out to you immediately, guys. Let's see, what did I leave out? ATVs are, they're ATVs. The UTVs are surprisingly awesome. The springy suspension is really fun. The easiest way to win freestyles to do all of the sitting down tricks while you're on the ground. Dope whips. Did I mention there's a lot of bugs? The terrain deformation looks good most of the times, but you can't quite rail newly formed ruts like you could in, say, Reflex. The customization is solid, probably the best of the series, but I still don't think it can compete with Milestone's customization. All in all, if Rainbow ends up fixing the bugs, I think this game was a huge step in the right direction. This game cannot compete with Monster Energy Supercross the game or MX Simulator as a hardcore racer.
Hardcore, brother.
I think its place is to be the game where you can just turn your brain off and have some fun throwing huge whips and fucking around on like dune buggies or whatever with your friends. They've got a solid frame to build upon with their physics. I just think they need to get a little more creative with their tracks. And probably fine-tune the glued to the ground spongy turning in the game. But overall, when the game is actually working, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. But with all these game-breaking bugs, I'd have to rate this game at about a 5 out of 10 schmeezers, boys. However, I'm gonna be generous here and assume that Rainbow will fix all the bugs within the month. So if you're watching this review beyond May 2018, I'm gonna rate this game 7 schmeezers out of 10. Whoa, what's up guys, Rainbow Studios here, and we have a deal for you. We've teamed up with EA and Activision to bring you a special DLC. Do you want to fix all those pesky bugs in the game? Well, prepare yourselves to surrender your wallets and give us all your goddamn money, because now you gotta pay for the patches. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the official paid patches DLC. Bend over and suck my ass. Welcome to Rainbow Studios. Fuck you.